How do you optimize existing pages? Well, you create an audit like this by pressing the audit button next to any one of your pages in your projects, or you can also do it by creating a new brief and starting from scratch. And so this is trying to optimize a page that I've just launched called our NLP API. We've just launched a natural language processing API, and I want to optimize this content now. And so I've analyzed it and built a report. And I've only got an SEO score of 2%. So let's see what's underneath this information. So it's saying that I should really increase the number of words because I've only got 300 words in my article. I need to increase the number of topics, and also I'm missing things like data modeling, etc. On the plus side, I have, it would seem, got the keywords in the title. It would have said that if that was missing as well. It also tells me about the orientation of the SERPs, the search engine results page, and the topics that they're talking about. So they're in the category of software categories and technology categories, as you might imagine, largely in those categories. So they could have been geographical, they could have been commercial. There's all sorts of different orientation of results that can come back, but it gives me an indication that probably if this is showing something like social, I probably have got this wrong, and it's talking about neuro-linguistic programming or something like that. User intent here is basically showing what kind of things people are looking for in the search engine results, judging by the kind of results that are coming back, and mostly people are looking about information rather than trying to buy things. Readability is good here, and that's great. If it's easy for a human to read, it's great for a machine to read. And my search engine understanding is pretty good as well. 20% is just above average, really. Google has seen 10. So this means that Google has seen 6 topics or entities in my content, and we've seen 6 plus 22, 28, so we've got a search engine understanding score of 21%. Now that's pretty good for this content at the moment. But let's go and see what we can do to improve this content and to make this a much better score than 2%. So here's the idea. In the editor here, we've brought in all of the content on the page. So we've put it into a sandbox so we can play with it here. Which we have a Google Chrome extension that will help you to edit this on Windows and in Google Docs and in WordPress if you would rather. But underneath the content, we've got some ideas and some sources, and so we've got a place called Content Ideas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through our system and we're going to start adding ideas that will allow us to improve our content. So let's have a look at the knowledge graph that has been created here. This is the knowledge graph. We've found that our competitors are talking about things like natural language processing, API, entities, data, modeling, learning, etc. And these are the kind of ideas that are important for Google because they've found these in the search results. So these are the search results that have come back. So I can sit there and have a look at the pages that have come back for the phrase NLP API. And I can also from here see what their main topics are. It splits out which ones are seen by Google and which ones are just seen by Inlinks. It also shows the number of topics we see per 100 words. It shows the number of times those pages are linking to other pages on the site from the body text, and then how many times they're linking off-site to other websites as well. And we also show the readability, ease, and search engine understanding score of these pages as well. So the idea here is that we can improve all these. We can also, if we need, change any of these. Perhaps we think that Stanford's GitHub is not really ideal for us. We're not really competing with that. So we could change that, or we could cut and paste any HTML code in there if we wanted to as well. So now if I go back here, what we're going to do is try and find the missing topics and add them to our content ideas. And I could just jump in here and start adding all the blue ones because the green ones we've already got. So let me explain what's happening with this line here. We are talking about the concept of natural language processing, and we know that because this line is shown in green, which means we're talking about it. Let me click on natural language processing and it will bring up the synonyms for natural language processing. It'll show the underlying entity, which is a Wikipedia page. It will show us some semantically related topics that we have seen in competitors' listings as well. So things like API and IBM and Google and cloud computing are all very closely related to the concept of NLP. We've also got a bunch of other topics and ideas here that are semantically close and are broken down by category or by category, and then underneath that we've got a bunch of related questions if we want to start answering users' needs by using questions as the methodology for building our content. So this length of line shows how important it is. So we think that the concept of talking about natural language processing clearly is important for the phrase natural language processing API or NLP API. We can see that our competitors are talking about this concept on average 10 times on the page. At the low end, they're talking about it once on the page, and then somebody is talking about it 29 times on the page. Then this green button here shows that we are talking about it 7 times on the page. So that's in green because we're within the bounds of 1 to 29. So we're in the same order of magnitude that we're talking about the concept. So that's great. Also, so we've given ourselves a big OK. And also Google has detected the concept of natural language processing in its NLP API. So we run both APIs at the same time, our own and Google's. And when Google picks it up, that's a bonus, really. But Google doesn't pick up the concept of API here in our content, which is really annoying because it's seen as very, very important. So we can again check on that and say, well, you know what? I need to talk about application programming interface. So the concept here, I need to talk about it. So I'm going to press add, or even though I've got it in here, I'm going to press add because I need to improve the discussion on API here. Let's go down and have a look at the things I haven't talked about, though. I've not really talked about data. So we need to talk a little bit about the underlying data, perhaps, that's on the system. So I can go in here and have a look at what we mean by data, and it brings in the concepts, and actually probably want to talk about unstructured data. So I'm going to sit there and talk about how we try and use NLP to create structured data out of unstructured data. Whilst I'm here, I can sit there and say, you know what, I want to talk about the data visualization that we can get back. Well, maybe that's not in the API, so I'm going to talk about, what shall I do? Data scraping, perhaps. So we'll talk about that as well. So it's going to add these ideas to our content ideas. Let's go down and have a look at this one. Model, that's interesting. Modeling could be all sorts of definitions, and that's a label. So we do need to sometimes jump in and just make sure that we understand what modeling is. And in this case, it's data modeling. So that's great. We want to talk about data modeling as well. So we're going to bring that concept in as an idea for ourselves. We can, rather than just jump in all these blue ones, we can categorize based on our business modeling. So our business here at InLinks is a software-based business. So the software categories are probably going to be more important to my business than possibly things to do with society. So I'm not so interested necessarily in things like learning or documents. Perhaps I am in this particular case, but not necessarily for the article itself. We're just trying to get people onto the videos. But when it comes to clouds and sentiment analysis, these are things that perhaps we want to talk about as well. So again, I'm going to put those kind of ideas in. So every time I press add, the editor is now adding those ideas at the bottom. So we've got these APIs, these descriptions, and these topic information is now adding into the content ideas so that I can disconnect my analysis from my writing. So now if I go back, I can filter with these and get back to all topics. I've put in a few new topics, and particularly I want these ones because they look very, very important. There may be some others. I'm going to show you those in the topic chart section as well. But let's see what other ideas I can pull in. So the guys at IBM are ranking very well for NLP API. So maybe I want to dive into their content and have a quick look at what's happening. What are they talking about? They're talking about Watson's natural language processing and natural language understanding. So they're talking about NLU. That's interesting. Perhaps I should talk about that. Obviously, I'm not going to really talk about Watson particularly, but the concept of NLU is a good idea. I know my content. I know I haven't talked about natural language understanding, and perhaps I should talk about that as a differentiator so I could talk about that. So I can go into have a look at all of my competitors' H tags and see whether there's something I need to bring in that is going to help my text and cover the bases. So I can have a look at the different ideas on Medium.com and have a look, and they're talking about Google's natural language API. So perhaps I need to talk about that as well. I can then go on to the keywords, which I don't use very often, but this just gives synonyms for particular words. The question finder, however, may be a different way of building your concept. So here we've got the questions that were found in the competitors' content, so things like what is NLP, and then there's a bunch of other questions here that we've got about programming language at the moment, because that's the most popular thing that we found, but we can dive into any one of these. So there's 82 questions on programming language, but named entity recognition, for example, here's 15 questions on named entity recognition. And if I want more, I can just click at the bottom and it will go and try and find some more. But what do we know? What do we know about entities? Why do entities matter for SEO? These are questions that are found in Google also asked kind of scenarios, and so they're questions that people have asked on the web. So you might want to choose one of those. So I'm going to say, right, how does named entity recognition work? Because that's essentially a part of my program. How to use the named entity recognition. I won't choose this one. What is named entity recognition? NLP. Clearly important for this content here, because we're talking about NLP. So if I go on to content structure, this really just shows you all of the topics in a mathematical order that we think has got a good chance of ranking. So this is really useful if you haven't written any content at all, and you can give this to a content writer and say, please write about NLP API, and please have a look at these as a suggested order in which you start talking about different topics. The topic chart is another way of visualizing the whole system. So this is now prioritizing the knowledge graph. Instead of in a tabular form by importance, it's it's showing things by category. So within the technology, the inner ring here is the category of topics that are being discussed in your competitors' content. The middle ring here is the topics that you are discussing, and also you'll see here that the ones that are in green text are ones that Google has picked up as well. So Google has picked up the concept of natural language processing and is picked up the concept of Google. It's the concept of Google itself in my content, but I've still got a way to go. And then the outer ring is all of the topics that I've yet to talk about in my content. So things like data and Watson and instant messaging, and we've color coded these, you'll notice. So we've got a red, yellow and green kind of traffic light system to try and help you see which things you want to talk about. And then you can engage, your own ideas and overlay these. So I don't want to talk about Watson, even though my competitors are talking about Watson. I do, however, want to talk about possibly pattern recognition. So this might be very useful. So I can click on pattern recognition, and again, I get the entity detail slide over, and so I want to talk about pattern recognition. That's great. You know what? Well, since I'm here, I'm also going to talk about machine learning as well, because that's related, even though it's not the one that my competitors are talking about, because I want to jump above what they're talking about. So I can use this as an alternative to the main topic analysis chart if I'm visually motivated or visually I'm a visual learner. You can also export this to a PNG file, or you can export the data to CSV from here as well. So now when I get back to the editor, I have a huge amount of new information that I can use to improve my content. So rather than just blindly rewriting my content, I can slowly start rewriting my content and editing from here. I can start to say, well, I need to talk about natural language processing APIs, and so I obviously don't just want to talk about what my competitors are talking about, but maybe I want to talk about what is an API. So maybe I've just said what is the Inlinks API, maybe I should say what is an API. then then hopefully our system will better understand this content. So actually you can reduce things. You don't always have to increase content. Sometimes here you do have to find yourself adding an H1 tag. So you can do that by changing this. If you haven't got an H1 tag, you can put that in here. We also have a Chrome browser extension so that you can also do this in Google Documents and WordPress or any other system if you want to do your editing from your browser. We also show you here the main missing topics that were shown in the topic analysis tab. So if you wanted to just bring in these ideas directly from your editing dashboard, you can do so if you want to. And if you are lucky enough to be able to have editors to write the content for you and you're the SEO analyst, you can leave some instructions here at the top for your content writer and they'll be able to get involved and do it for you. So once you're happy with your rewriting, you can save the text and update the analysis. And what will happen then is that the analysis will change from analyzing the live URL to analyzing the text editor, and it will change the score. It will either make it better or make it worse. And ultimately now I've even lost my natural language processing because I've deleted the NLP definition there. So even though Google's still understanding the concept of natural language processing, and I've now killed my my understanding of the API. So it understands API, but it's lost the natural language processing. So you can see how you're going to use this to improve your content, and then ultimately you can send your content back to your live system. There's a couple of other buttons I'm going to show you here. This public URL is a read-only version of this, which you can share with the customer over Zoom, and you can have them a conversation with them and say, look, we need to rewrite this content because you've not talked about these concepts and your competitors are, and here's your competitors, and here's a visualization of what we need to do. So if you're an agency, or if you're the content writer, or if you're the SEO person, you can demystify everything for your customer by showing them exactly what it is that you're trying to do as an SEO. And once you are happy and you've edited your content and put it back on, then the last thing to do here is to press this update button to change us back from analyzing what's in the text editor to analyzing the live URL. So this is how you use our content optimization tool. We also have a workflow that allows you to assign the content writing or parts of this process to writers. You can see that from the main project dashboard, and you can add writers there as well. It's very, very powerful. It's very different to most content optimization tools because all of the suggestions and all the ideas are based around entities and topics that Wikipedia understands, that Google should understand, and hopefully that we can understand. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy using our editor.